Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. We're going to uncover the absolutely fascinating, deeply evolutionary reasons why social rejection feels quite literally like a physical punch to the gut. I mean, out of all the negative emotions we experience, frustration, fear, intense disappointment, nothing really compares to that overwhelming sting of rejection. But as we're about to see, this fear of being left out isn't just psychological, it is deeply, fundamentally biological. To really get why it hurts so much, I want you to imagine yourself transported, say, 10,000 years into the past. You're standing completely alone in a really harsh, unforgiving ancestral landscape. You aren't navigating social media or worrying about a party invite here. You are simply trying to survive the night.
And unlike the predators out there lurking in the dark, we humans are, frankly, incredibly ill-equipped for solitary survival. Think about it. You have no fangs to bite with, no sharp claws to defend yourself, and no thick fur to protect you from the freezing elements. On our own, out in the wild, humans are profoundly vulnerable.
So the absolutely crucial question here is, how does a vulnerable human actually survive in an environment that's basically built to destroy them? How did our ancestors make it far enough to pass down their genes to us?
Well, the answer is your tribe. Being part of a small group, and actually being accepted by that group, was absolutely essential to our ancestors' survival. Your tribe was your only source of food, your only protection from predators, and your only real opportunity for mating. Meaning, if you were ostracized or pushed out of your social group, you lost everything.
Rejection wasn't just, a bruised ego or having a bad day. It was a literal death sentence. No way around it. Because of this, evolutionary psychologists explained that humans developed an early warning mechanism. We basically needed a biological alarm system to alert us the second we were under threat of being ostracized, prompting us to change our behavior immediately so we wouldn't get kicked out to die.
Which brings us to Section 1, your brain on rejection and this biological alarm system.
All right, fast forward to today. We live in comfortable homes. We buy our food at the grocery store, and we're generally totally safe from roaming predators. But here's the crazy part. Our modern brains haven't actually updated that ancient survival software. Deep within your brain is the DACC, or the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. This is a region that detects cues that might be harmful to your survival. But it doesn't just process physical pain, like, say, touching a hot stove. It is the exact same region that lights up when you experience social estrangement. And this brilliantly illustrates how your brain literally cannot tell the difference between a broken bone and a broken heart. They both activate the exact same neural distress pathways. This is why a bad breakup or being excluded from a group actually physically hurts. In fact, studies have even shown that taking a common physical painkiller, like Tylenol, can measurably reduce the emotional pain of a social rejection. It's wild.
Let's move on to Section 2. The cyberball experiment, to see just how deep this pain really goes.
To see just how easily this biological alarm gets triggered, researchers had subjects sit at a computer and play a really simple virtual game of catch with two digital avatars, who they were told were other human participants. For a while, everyone passes the ball equally, but then the two strangers suddenly stop throwing the ball to the subject. The result? The subject quickly experienced severe emotional distress, heightened anxiety, and, get this, even a measurable drop in cognitive function and IQ just from being left out of a virtual game.
But here is where it gets truly mind-blowing. The pain they felt, it remained exactly the same, even when participants were explicitly told later that the whole thing was rigged by a computer. Researchers even took it a step further and told participants that the avatars excluding them actually belonged to a despised hate group, like the Ku Klux Klan. Even knowing they were being rejected by people they actively despised, the participants' brains still triggered that painful DACC alarm.
And if that wasn't enough, researchers even swapped out the harmless virtual ball for an animated cyber bomb, programmed to randomly explode and kill whoever was holding it. And yeah, you guessed it, participants still felt the exact same sting of rejection when the strangers stopped passing them the bomb. Your brain doesn't care about logic, it just cares that you're being left out.
Okay, Section 3, the sociometer theory and reframing self-esteem.
Since we know our brains completely overreact to being left out, we kind of need a new way to understand our self-worth. This theory totally flips our traditional understanding of self-esteem. We usually think of self-esteem as this intrinsic, private measure of our own personal worth, right? But the sociometer theory shows it isn't just about feeling good for the sake of it. Instead, self-esteem is actually a highly sensitive internal tracker built into our psychology to ensure we maintain those life-saving social bonds we talked about earlier.
So, a sudden drop in self-esteem isn't a personal failure at all. It's literally just your internal fuel gauge flashing red. When you feel a dip in your self-esteem, that is your sociometer warning you to repair your social connections before you get, voted off the island. It forces you to self-correct, be a bit more pro-social, and make sure your status in the tribe is secure.
Moving to Section 4, the cost of neutrality in the alliance model of friendship.
This intense, primal need for secure social bonds also explains why we react so strongly to how our friends behave during conflicts. Check out this quote from developmental psychologist Alex Shaw. It perfectly captures what's known as the alliance model of friendship. This model compares our close friendships to high-stakes international treaties. Because our survival historically depended on people having our back when things got dangerous, we subconsciously view our friends as our sworn allies in a pretty hostile world.
So, if a friend decides to stay neutral when you're in an argument with someone else, your primal brain reacts as if they actively joined the enemy. Research actually shows that people respond just as negatively to a friend who stays neutral as they do to a friend who takes the opponent's side. Why? Because back in the ancestral world, an unreliable ally who hesitated during a fight was a massive liability that got you killed.
Which brings us to our final section, reframing the pain and overcoming this biological alarm.
So obviously, we are hardwired to panic at the slightest hint of exclusion. But since we are no longer in danger of starvation or, getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger if we miss a party invite or get unfollowed online, how do we quiet this ancient blaring alarm? Well, psychologists like Dr. Guy Winch and Dr. Kelsey Zamambran recommend a really powerful tool called cognitive reappraisal. First, we have to consciously remind ourselves that the intense pain we feel is just a biological reflex. It's a ghost from the past, not a reflection of our true value. Then, we consciously reframe the situation. A job rejection or a failed date. It's usually just a bad fit, not some grand verdict on your worth as a human being. Finally, take a little time to write down and affirm the core traits you value in yourself to actively rebuild that battered self-esteem.
And honestly, the absolute best, most effective way to silence that Dan ACC pain alarm in your brain is to simply restore social connection. Because your brain is panicking that you've been kicked out of the tribe, you just need to prove to it that you haven't been. Calling a trusted friend or spending time with someone who loves you immediately sends a signal to your biology that you're safe, you're accepted, and your survival is totally secure.
I really hope this explainer completely changes how you view your hurt feelings. Rejection is always going to sting, for sure. That's just the price we pay for being a highly social species. But understanding the deep biology behind it leaves you to wonder, the next time you feel that awful pit in your stomach, how much of your modern emotional pain is just a prehistoric ghost trying to protect you? So, next time, thank your brain for keeping you safe, call a friend, and remember, your tribe is still out there.